right. Okay, I call this meeting to order. And we'll start with 1.8, Pledge Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to hear everybody's voice.
Yeah.
This is nice.
It's right.
All right, 2.0, agenda approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? 3.0, visitors to address the board. Obviously, there's
We did not have any requests.
nobody requests, okay.
Or to address the board by Zoom.
We'll go down to 4.0 then, consent agenda.
We waited on the one. I'll move so that we can have discussion. So, move to accept. Second.
Okay, discussion?
I think we were pausing because we wanted some feedback from Trent because we weren't here. Remember, back to me.
And I don't remember doing that.
Do you have any objections to any that were on here?
No, I didn't see anything that was.
This is the fourth time that we had them out there, but we did, I think you're right, so we didn't want to move it forward, one, make sure we had the whole board.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see anything in here that was concerning.
Did we have a clarification about anything visible in homes? Yeah. Or when we are on Zoom,
And it's not in here, right?
right?
I believe the reason why it's not in here is because
Regina with and someone else. No more discussion for me.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that brings us to 5.0, new business. 5.1, early college high school program.
yes. So I'll introduce my friend. This is Michael Crandall. Michael and I have worked together for a fair number of years, and I'm eager to work with him again. I started out a conversation back when OMIC started, and we had those discussions on trying to develop a 2+2 program. And OMIC's been slow moving forward. They've just finished a PCC campus, but as it evolved, it became evident that it wasn't something that we had the capacity as a district to do, nor did the OMIC site out in Scappoose. So I think it might have been pre-COVID that I reached out to Michael the first time, and then COVID hit, and then I think about a year ago, again, said, hey, can we do this? And Michael's been just a great support, lining things up, getting some trainings. And so very, very excited to have this option for our children in the district. And I know options for kids is something that is really important for this board. So Michael is the leader of the early college high school, and I will let him take it from there. So welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So do people normally present around here or? Okay.
This is our first time back for a
Oh,
long
okay.
time. We've all forgotten. But we do have a camera here now.
Okay.
So that's the camera. So that may be
This is a good spot.
probably.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, so thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. So early college high school has been around for, in one iteration or another, for about 30 years. But we've been called early college high school since I think we started calling it that in around 2001, 2002. We currently have 330 students on the Rock Creek and Sylvania campus. We have students from the Beaverton School District and from Tiger Tualatin, although in the past we also had a partnership with Hillsborough. And so if you could move forward one slide for me.
I think the clicker might work.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thank you. So what I was going to do tonight is just talk about the program, eligibility, application process, the supports we have, and kind of how credits work when a student joins early college high school. And then time for some questions at the end. So early college high school is a full-time, fully integrated college experience for students. They attend classes at Rock Creek or Sylvania, and we have offices at both campuses. The staff at Early College High School are employees of the Beaverton School District. There is myself, and there are 5 high school counselors with the 300 and some odd students. It's a 2-year experience for students. So typically they are applying for the program at the end of their sophomore year, and then they are joining for 3 academic terms each year. So they do their junior and senior year full-time at PCC, taking all their classes at PCC, earning high school and college credit at the same time. All the classes they take earn both, and our counselors obviously are meeting with them to ensure that that is the case. Students apply typically in the spring of 10th grade. We do have some students who apply in the fall of 11th grade. On average, our students are graduating with between 75 and 80 college credits completed, and about 40% of the students earn their associate's degree at the time of their high school graduation. That number would be a little bit higher, but honestly, when students have a post-high school plan in mind, and that's very set, it is sometimes more advantageous for them to not go after the associate's degree and focus on whatever that high school plan is, post-high school plan, and meeting, if they're going to a 4-year school, meeting those prereqs that maybe don't match with the associate's degree, or if they're going into a trade program, going after classes prior to the trade program. 12 to 16 credits per term is defined as full-time, and that is typically your core class at PCC or at the community college is a 4-credit class. So like a math class, a language arts class would be 4 credits. So typically 4 classes per term. When students join early college, they remain cross-enrolled in their home high school. They are able to participate in home high school because they remain cross-enrolled. They are able to participate in OSAA sports, after-school activities, clubs, social activities, dances, things like that. The program pays for all of the tuition for students between 12 and 16 credits. They have to, anything beyond that is the responsibility of families. We discourage that because that is, in terms of the time in class and outside of class, that would be more than a 40-hour, 45-hour work week. And then the responsibility for the families is books and transportation. If a student qualifies or a family qualifies for free and reduced lunch, then our program pays for a healthy meal and also their textbooks. And then we're in the process of talking about transportation with the Columbia County and PCC out of home. So eligibility would be a resident of the school district. Students have to be 16 years old at the start of classes, and PCC starts after most typical high schools. So PCC is starting, I think, next year, September 24th. And what I usually tell students is, when you join early college, you get a couple extra weeks of summer vacation, but I take those weeks back when you don't graduate early. Seniors' last day is usually right around the start of June. Well, PCC goes until the 18th of June each year. So it's a net zero for them. And I say that there's some flexibility there because really they need to be 16, like by November. We can usually get their PCC puts a hold on students' accounts if they are not 16. We can usually get an override if they are, into the November range. So sophomore status is really what we're looking for, applying and then starting as a junior. 2.0 GPA, that's a PCC requirement, and we do have some flexibility there. If there is we have had some students who have had some interrupted learning, maybe a health issue or something like that, and they have not hit that 2.0 GPA. Able to place into math 60, reading 115, and writing 115. Math 60 is the floor of what can be put onto a high school diploma for mathematics. And reading and writing 115 is the lowest class that we can put onto a diploma also. And then we need to have 12 high school credits completed by the end of their sophomore year. And that's so that we can ensure an on-time graduation. Students earn a little bit less credits per year when we do the conversion than they do at their home high school. So that's kind of essential. That's one of the essential things. You may have some summer school and things like that that we could talk to students about, but that's really what we're kind of looking for is at the end of sophomore year, 12 high school credits. I often get asked the question, who comes to early college? What is the student profile? And I think it's really important to know that, our name is Early College High School, but we are not, the profile is not like the highest academic achiever in every school. That is not who is coming to us. Notice like the requirements are the lowest classes we can enter onto a high school transfer. The most important thing in my mind is that a student is motivated and that they're looking for something different than their current location where they're getting their education. So a lot of students come to us because they're first in their family to attend college, and we have specific supports to support those students and families. Some other students, home high school is not a great fit for just a variety of reasons. Different pathways. Some students are coming to us because they have a very particular career path. I had a student last year who was looking to be a pilot, and obviously PCC offers some particular coursework that can't be offered in any of the schools in Beaverton or Tigers Fullerton towards that. Discouraged learners and students who want to challenge themselves. I often say to parents, I would have been a terrible candidate for this program when I was in high school. I had a core group of friends. I really enjoyed my high school experience, and I was involved in a variety of different activities, and I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I left. And I was not mature enough to handle the college environment. Other of my friends would have been perfect candidates for this. My wife would have been a perfect candidate for this program. In terms of the student profile, we like to say we're an alternative education for students who don't need a great deal of academic remediation. First and family, as I mentioned, is a key recruitment demographic. And really the most important things when we talk to students and parents is that students who find success in the program are independent. They are mature enough to work in the adult world of college. And I think what also is important to know is that the students themselves are treated no differently than any other PCC student. So unless a student discloses to a professor that, hey, I'm still in high school, they are treated exactly the same, and they need to come in with the understanding that they are going into the adult world. And at PCC, if you miss class the first week, your professor can drop you. That is not the case at high school, right? So that last thing and what we talk about, the soft skills, are really important for this program and for student success. We don't just say, great, here you go, have fun at college. We have a significant number of supports that are in place for students. So first, all students are assigned to an early college counselor, and that counselor has a very small student to counselor ratio. They meet with that counselor multiple times per year in formal meetings, whenever they choose classes, or our motto is whenever anything is less than ideal, you need to contact your counselor. We have required college guidance courses taught by our counselors in the first and second term of their time in our program. And that allows us to meet with them on a weekly basis in a classroom setting. And typically what we see in the classroom in our class is what we see in the other classes that they're attending also. So if they are late to our class, we can assume that they're late to the other students, the other professors' classes. Not turning in an assignment, it's kind of a litmus test. That first class, college survival and personal responsibility, is kind of, we like to say, it is how to do college 101. So formal assignment where they have to make a meeting with their professor, and have a formal meeting with the professor. Accessing resources on campus, organization. What does your planner look like? All of those things that maybe, those skills that maybe weren't developed as much in the high school setting. The second class that they take is a career and life planning class. And the motto in our program is that, we help students create the life they want to live. This class is specifically for that. So if you're coming into the program not knowing what you want to do, you leave that class having done a job shadow, having done all of the career ed requirements for the state of Oregon. And then you are now tailoring your coursework towards the the future goal or your post-high school plan. And then there are also, our supports on our campus. So we often get the question, well, how do I know what classes to take? Well, before you're selecting any classes, you have a formal meeting with your counselor so that we know that the classes you're taking are going to meet your post-high school plan and your graduation requirements. And then any student who receives any term, any grade below a C is put on an academic support plan. And that academic support plan requires them to do a midterm progress report. It requires them to meet with a counselor on a weekly basis. On a bi-weekly basis, the second off week, we have formal soft skills, study skills curriculum that we go through with those students. And then there are all the PCC resources that they have access to. So free tutoring in every academic area. There's free mental health counseling. There are resource centers. There is academic advising. There are clubs and sports. We typically, when things are in person and everything is kind of normal, we typically have a person at early college or over the last 5 years, we've had somebody in just about every resource center or leadership area at PCC from our program. So the director of legislative affairs, student legislative affairs, was a graduate of our program 3 years ago. She got a trip to Tokyo to talk to other folks like her. Student body president at PCC, Rock Creek, was one of our students while they were in our program. So students can, what is great about this program is they can not only access the PCC resources, but they still have the resources here in their home district that they can still access. So they want to go to prom, they can go to prom. The thing for students that they need to know is that they have much more freedom in this program. This is for students and parents. There's much more freedom. They are college students. So in the college level, no one is monitoring their daily progress or their attendance. We require students in the first term to do a midterm progress report. And then obviously if they are, struggling academically, we will continue that. But it is not, there's a communication difference when you go to college where professors can only communicate with the students. So there is a communication difference that is different. And then the equation on what students do in class versus out of class changes. So 20% of time in college is in class and 80% of time is out of class. In high school, it's 80% of time in class, 20% of time out of class. So that flips, and students need to be aware that they need to be more independent. They need to have, more self-discipline, all of those things. And we teach that to them in that first class that we teach. That class starts before all of their other classes at PCC. So they get a feel for the campus and what to expect. I'm going to move on, but this is just a typical schedule for students. So their first term, they're going to take a reading and writing class. They're going to take a math class. They're going to take our CG class, and that's a full schedule. And students could, if they wanted, block their classes on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Mm-hmm. Our CG class, we typically run on a Friday so that it doesn't conflict with other classes that they want to take. So in terms of the application, students first apply to PCC as a credit student, and that gives them an ID number and allows them to take a placement test. They take that math placement test next, and we're looking for a score of math 60 or above. That test is online. It takes them about 30 to 45 minutes. And then there's a recommendation and an application. And the recommendation and application are kind of an automated system. When they start the application, they designate a high school counselor to fill out a recommendation. That recommendation is a very short thing for counselors to fill out. It's a Google form. And our application usually can be completed in 30 minutes or so. We have 3 what we call essays. I'm a former language arts teacher. They are not essays. They are short answers. You can only put in 275 words into the little panel. So there's not a huge onus on the students. They should be able to apply rather quickly. We have a proposed timeline for St. Helens, and our fall application we could open as early as tomorrow, and we would close it around May 19th, and that would be a soft closing date. PCC just this week expanded we would want to close things so that they are prepared to register for classes for the fall, and PCC just pushed their fall registration into June, a little bit later than previously. But that was a soft close there on the 19th. Students and families could plan on attending our open house on the 14th and the 21st. We can add additional ones. We can do an in-person thing out here if families are interested. We can do lunch advisory presentations or in-person presentations at the high school. So that's kind of a very brief, quick overview of the program, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Michael. And as you can see, this is a really well thought out program. It would have taken us years and years, maybe 30, to catch up.
Yeah.
So like, this is a fantastic opportunity for our kids. So please, if you have questions.
I'm kind of unique to it because I did this, but it was called high school completion then.
Yeah,
And I did
yeah.
it my junior year.
Yeah.
Did the whole thing without the extra supports from Beaverton.
Yeah, yeah. So did you do it in Beaverton?
No, I did
Did
it through BCC.
Okay.
I took a couple at Cascade and a couple at Sylvania, but I did, like, that was like looking at my schedule, except for I had speech and sociology.
Yeah.
And a couple other things that I.
Yeah, so like the difference, and I think what is great about our program is we have an office on campus. You've got support staff there. Students can come in. We've got a refrigerator. They can drop their lunch off. You know, there's always people there to help. And we discourage students from taking classes after 4 o'clock because their staff is not there.
I was wondering, so then did they meet the state required credits or their home districts?
Home district. Yeah.
Okay. And then are they given an opportunity by most home districts to go ahead and walk, even if they're not done with their? final
Yes. Yep. So what we have, like in our districts, because that last, so let me back up and say, typically students are completing their high school credits by the end of winter term, their senior year. And it's just because that's just kind of naturally how it happens, right? But if students carry over in our district, at least in Beaverton, what we end up doing is we have students do a midterm progress report if they still need credits that spring term, because it's going to go beyond your graduation date. We have students do a midterm progress report showing that they're passing those classes with a C or above and they can walk. But I would say 90% of our students are completing by the end of winter term. So that last spring term is just additional classes waiting for graduation. Or they could graduate early if they so choose.
How many spots do we have?
We were talking about 15 spots year 1 and then additional 15 spots year 2.
So a student could, we've got fantastic programs at St. Helens. We have some great CTE, great arts programs. So if we have a student who really is in the band, can they schedule around so they can make band class too?
So, this is a timely question because there is I think it's a symphonic band at Mountainside right now. And to participate in the OSAA, you have to be in that band program, you have to be enrolled in the class. The one tricky piece is that you don't double bill the state. So that's one piece if they're enrolled, so you're not pulling funding twice in these 2 programs. That's one problem. The scheduling is a challenge. What most students do when they are participating in sports is they are scheduling their classes so that they're done by, let's say, 2 o'clock every day so that they can, make it back for a team or a practice or something like that. But when they're in class, the problem that we have in Beaverton is that we're on an A-B schedule. So that class is going to fall one week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday the next week. And at PCC, it's a daily. So you're gonna have you have to not have a class from 8 to 9 every day of the week because that class is going to fall one week on 3 of them the next week. So it is a challenge to do that.
Doable, but
It's a challenge. Yeah. The students will have to be very, very careful at the classes that they select. And oddly enough, it's easier for them to do it when they're seniors because the classes, they're just more savvy with the program and how they schedule, and they schedule first instead of last. And so there's more opportunities for them.
So, I'm sorry, I'm asking. You have a question?
I have lots of questions. I'll wait until everybody asks them.
I'll ask one more.
Yeah.
You mentioned we could start tomorrow, and I've been working with the high school.
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend that, what we have done is we have created a separate site off of our website that has like an application. We can flip the switch on that tomorrow. I just haven't done anything formal in case there was some changes or anything that came out of this meeting. And also because PCC has been changing their registration dates. I think we can get started tomorrow if you all are ready.
Where would you? We don't necessarily have a formal. It's kind of a formal section, so if they flip the switch tomorrow, let's get going.
I should also add, this would be important. What we have always said to our students is, what we do is we have this application and then we accept students, and they have the right to always refuse, right? All the way through the summer. So we always tell students, if you're thinking about it, you might as well accept, because you always have the right to go back, but we only have a certain number of seats.
So would this be only open to rising juniors, and not, if a kid's a junior this year, going to be a senior?
Yes, that's correct. We're a 2-year program, and what ends up happening, because we have these required classes, a student could be maybe just on track to graduate, and because of these classes as they're juniors, taking these could fall them off track. So we want to avoid that. I think we could entertain that if maybe we don't have enough for the first cohort. That makes sense.
But I mean, there just might be some kids that are interested in attending PCC for coursework that you have if you don't.
Yeah.
But this is a full-time program.
Full-time.
You can't chop it up and say, gee, I just want to take math.
No, it really is. I think that was tried in the past and it was not very successful. And the timing is really difficult too.
Students can do that on their own if they want to take a night class at PCC.
They can.
They can just enroll and pay the bill and go.
They can. Yep.
If they place exceptionally off the chart, like in the writing 122, are they getting any of those extra credits?
So I had a student take the math placement test, and it goes up into, I think the last one is it's one before linear algebra. So yeah.
Differential equations.
Yeah, differential. So I've had students placed in a differential equations as sophomores at the end of their sophomore year, and they go into that class, and then they have completed all of their math requirements at that point. And for this one particular student, he became a tutor and a TA in the math department. Yeah, and then chose to, like you said, he started taking some math classes at Portland State at the 300 level. So students, we have a lot of students who go right into Wording 121. Unfortunately, the reading and writing test, placement test has been closed since the pandemic. So we're looking at transcripts to qualify students for 121, and we are erring on the side of caution. So we're typically placing students, unless they're in like an honors track or in like a specialized class, or get some kind of feedback from a professor, teacher, we're putting them into 115.
Yep.
Okay,
So
so
115 doesn't transfer.
no, it's a prereq.
Yeah, it is the prereq for about 80% of the classes there. Yeah.
So for the program that you guys run, do you have any programs inside of the high school that identifies students that might be a good fit, but may not necessarily have a history of going out for some of these things or developing some of those diamonds in the rough that may not understand maybe what this program is?
We rely on our counselors. Though they are our counselors, and then our AVID coordinators in Beaverton and in Tiger Tualatin are our biggest kind of advocates. And that's because we've been around in those districts for a while, and so we know all of the counselors. But my primary contacts at every school are the assistant principals and the counselors. Our counselors feed us the most students, bring us the most students. And, it's not uncommon for the counselors to get together and then say, Michael, we want to do an individual meeting at our school at lunch. Can you bring a couple students and talk about the program? We do that all the time. So that's where we're often finding our students.
Okay, and so it sounds like you're aligned with Abbott then, pretty closely with that program and.
Yeah, we have a lot of our students are coming from the Abbott program in both Tiger 12 and Beaverton.
For this county, transportation is always questionable. And we have a transit system that is not always, I think, secured in funding. And what other ways are there, like online courses? Are there ways to get around to transportation? Because the students that I think that we would be identifying may not always have access to their own transportation.
Yeah. So I reached out to PCC about shuttle service from OMIC. And the response I got was literally on my way here. And they said that they had been in conversation with the Columbia County rider and about starting up the shuttle service from OMIC to Rock Creek. So PCC typically has a shuttle service that runs between all of their campuses all day. And my understanding is that they closed that down at the start of the pandemic, but they're hoping to start that back up. My understanding is that PCC and those contact people are meeting mid-May to talk more about the logistics, funding, et cetera. What we do in our district is we provide TriMet passes to students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So we would do something similar if there was something, if those logistical challenges were not in place.
So for us, you'd have to have two passes. We'd have to have the CC Rider and then also the TriMet.
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah, and we would be able to give any student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch a free TriMet pass. And then I think we would just need to work with Columbia, the rider program.
Okay.
On what that might look like. I certainly don't want that to be a barrier, but I also do have to say that what we are telling students is that this is not a remote program. So what we have found in the world of the pandemic is that our students are not as successful in these remote classes. We are telling students in our district, at least that are coming from the online program, that you will not be able to do that. In the past, prior to the pandemic, we would not allow students to take online classes until they had multiple terms of success. That was how, that was our experience.
We have students from our district that are currently going to PCC. I mean, I know some of them.
Mhm.
And they were riding the CC rider that goes over to Hillsborough, and it stops at Rock Creek on the way. It's a limited schedule, but they were able to make that work. And then as they became more proficient at driving, they just drove themselves. So there's kids that carpool, there are kids that do different things. There's potential.
Yeah.
You can get there.
Yeah.
These kids have been doing it, and they do participate. One of them in particular was on our cross-country team.
Okay.
Going there and was able to make the schedule work.
For classes, PCC has a number of campuses. Is this program able to be completely done on Rock Creek, or does it have to go to the other campuses?
Yeah. In the past, prior to the pandemic, students could not take a class at another campus until they had multiple terms of success. Students could complete everything at Rock Creek. The thing is that there are specialized programs that are housed at some of the different locations. And for those, we would tell students to pivot to a remote class, but that's really like their senior year. But we have had students take classes at all of the campuses. Yeah, and basically we have an MOU with PCC, and like they assign a faculty advisor for each campus, but we never really have to use that. I mean, what we just will really discourage students is middle of the day commuting between campuses. It's just they're like, oh, I want to go from Rock Creek to Cascade. No, you don't. You really don't. That's not it's just going to add to stress. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh.
When you are talking about supporting students using the free and reduced.
Yes.
Is that the federal threshold? Because next year there will be the expanded state eligibility.
Yeah, what students typically do is they just let us know that and then it's a rubber stamp.
Okay.
Yep.
Have there been any complications with students that thought that they were prepared, like maturity level wise, and then all of a sudden they're getting around a bunch of 18 to 20-year-olds that have a whole different mentality?
Yeah.
How do you support those students?
Well, that comes up. We see that in the first class, or we see that in we asked you to make an appointment and you did not. Right? There's just that alone is a red flag. We talk a lot in our orientation about that you are going into the adult world and we are treating you with adult expectations. And so typically, I mean, honestly, we don't have any disciplinary issues. Like the story I tell is the student who looks at his phone once, the professor tells him to put it away. He looks at his phone twice, the professor tells him to leave. Right? Very different from my other program, which is housed in a normal high school. So that we typically see that in the class. We can see it there. We see it in how they communicate or their lack thereof. And then the first term, they do a midterm progress report. So if we see that, when we see that, that's right at the midway point. If we see, like, first of all, didn't turn one in, that's a parent meeting. See grades on there that are of concern, that's a meeting. And we always you have until the week before finals at this point with PCC to withdraw from a class, and that withdraw has no impact on GPA at the high school or the college. So there are some stopgaps that we have in place. I would say that our retention rate is really high, but yeah, we do have students who come in and they're like, this is not the program for me. And typically what we're seeing that in the midterm progress report, and we're able to withdraw students and they can go back at that point. If they're on the fence in terms of grades and things, we typically want them to stay and give them second chances, and we put them on that academic support plan. If they have multiple terms, the thing that is where I am intervening is when they become off track for an on-time graduation. That's when I am stepping in and saying, I know you want to stay in the program, but you're closing doors towards your future at this point. So
if they do get off track or they do withdraw, are they getting, say, the midterm, are they getting a quarter's worth of credit at high school?
No, they're not, because there's no grade evidence when they withdraw.
So maybe they would have participated for 2-3 months.
Right, but you have to have a transcripted grade to put it onto the St. Helens transcript. Yeah, because like in our district, you would have. You're absolutely right. We would have but you would also have like evidence of targets that are met. But because the targets at the high school and the college don't meet, you have to have an actual transcript to place it on. As evidence of a completion.
So is Plymouth aware of this too? I mean, every year it seems like they have one kid that would really benefit from. They're at Plymouth already because they didn't fit the classical high school, but they really don't fit there either because they're beyond.
Colleen was around when I did it, so she's pretty aware, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the reason I just if they're knowing that this is available now as a thing, I can see what that benefits kids. So what if a kid? I know at Plymouth sometimes they tend to be 5-year graduates. A lot of them. So if a kid is not making progress to make it in 2 years, will you maintain them for that 3rd year?
So there's some tricky things about like the age and when they carry over in September. So as long as I think that's, you know, typically if a student is becoming off track to graduate, we have faculty connections at every school. And that's when we're working with the assistant principal or the counselor, and we're having a conversation about whether, you know, whether you all are willing to carry over this seat, the student, excuse me.
You're basically carrying one of our 30 seats.
Exactly. Is that, and also, like, you know, one of the things that we do in this process is that, you know, we need to have a really, you know, good relationship with the counseling teams at all of the schools, because I can tell you all of the completion programs at Beaverton, you know, right off the top of my head, and what's going to work and what's not, and who are the point people. And we if a student's coming back, we want to be able to talk to the family and the students about what their options are before they come back to you all. So, yeah.
How secure is the funding for this program?
It is funded. Yeah. So, you know, on my side of things, what Beaverton does is they base my budget on the number of students that come into the program, and I let them know about the potential of this, and the money is there for tuition.
Do you have stats on?
Stats on how many students are completing their diploma?
Yeah.
Yeah, every student completed their diploma by the end of July of last year, and the year before, and the year before that. So typically, 100% graduation rate. But typically, when students are struggling academically, we're finding a solution for them prior to June, right? Like the students that are exiting our program as seniors are either graduating, or they have like they're graduating early, or they're going a different route. They're going a different route. Yeah. But of the students who started with us in December of their senior year, the last 3 years, everyone graduated by July. There were a couple students who maybe needed to do a summer school class or something like that, but everyone finished. Yeah.
And the degree that they earn, is it a block transfer degree, or can it be a specific degree that is offered in a two-year program?
Can do that. Yeah. You know, they can choose a variety of the AAs depending on their future goals. The thing that they are not able to do are the apprenticeship programs, because the classes are not matching the high school requirements. They can knock out a lot of the prereqs towards those programs. So like, you know, I had just a couple of weeks ago a student who, you know, wanted to graduate early because they had been accepted into the dental hygienist program, and they needed the stamp on their diploma so that they could go directly into that. So, yeah.
So we have a event tomorrow, on the 14th, open house for a family center. Is there any way we can get information to have available at that
I
gathering?
think the information's already going out to families. Is my understanding.
Yeah, I'm sending it over to the high school, and then my understanding was they were going to have a web presence on options, and we were going to be one of them.
So yes, we could, Trin. We could absolutely have that out there. My only hesitation is, I guess it is resource, because it's the ribbon cutting of the Family Resource Center.
Oh, okay.
Which is across the way. So
Okay.
we could get some flyers and set them out as well. And I do think it would be great to have you come and speak on campus.
Yeah.
Maybe both at Plymouth and the high school.
Mhm.
But I know that you've been in communication with counselors.
Yep.
There's legwork that's been going on ahead of time.
Yeah, I was just at St. Helens High last week and met with the counselors. I didn't want to do a formal kind of advertisement or push until after this meeting. Yeah, that just didn't seem appropriate. Yeah, what could go wrong?
I like the idea of students being hand selected, because I even have like one mind would probably say, I want to do it, but he wouldn't be one of those kids that actually fits your mold.
Mhm.
And the other one wouldn't qualify because he's the sophomore that's been in COVID without the credit. So
Right.
I think a lot of the students will be wanting to do it, but without the acknowledgement from the counselor
Mhm.
that they qualify, then.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, one of the questions that I had in the meeting last week was, what happens if we don't have enough students? Well, that's okay. We don't want to force students into college. And we also, at least in Beaverton, we open up a fall application that opens in October and closes in November with students starting after the winter break. So we use that to fill any open seats from attrition.
I can see a reasonable number of 5 kids maybe from here, right? The first year that said, that actually qualified, applied, and said, that's maybe 4 or 5 of them.
Mhm.
Typically, then we just pay, the district just pays for those 4 or 5 kids, I'm assuming, and as that works its way in, then more people will be interested.
Yep.
But there's a lot of kids who just really like what they're doing.
Yeah.
That would be great for your program.
Yeah.
It's just that they like what they're doing.
And that was the analogy about me when I was in high school. I often get a question like, what's better, AP or IB or this? And my question is, my answer to that is, you're going to be fine either way. You're going to be prepared for post-high school, whatever, by taking AP or IB classes or going to early college.
Or just doing regular high school.
Or just doing
graduating and leaving it for later.
Yeah, exactly. This is a program for some students. It's not a program for all students.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
No, I have one more.
Only one?
More questions. So if a student does express an interest and maybe isn't the right mold, maybe isn't the right fit.
Yep.
What are some things that you've done to either steer that student in a different direction that might be on the same, not necessarily the same program, but the same kind of path, or to bolster whatever isn't the right fit to be able to work inside of that?
So in our district, the way that it runs is that there is a lottery and students have to meet the minimum criteria to enter into the lottery. Because we have, we're proposing 15 seats, but Beaverton has 160. So between 9 different schools. So we run a lottery and then when a seat opens, in our program, at least, we always have some attrition. And so we have that fall application. But also in our district, we have a program called Opportunity Knox, which allows students to take 1 class per term at PCC, as long as it fits outside of their high school schedule and is not currently offered at their high school. So that's an alternative that we often use. But I also, my other job is a CTE program. So we're talking about CTE, we're talking about the different opportunities at their high schools, et cetera.
So if a kid wanted to take computer programming and take a class in C, he could do that.
He could, yep. As long as that class was not offered. And so for often, for that student, it is a great program if you've already done, say, the CTE computer science program at Sunset High School. Here you go. Here you can add to it. So
More of an adjunct program.
exactly, yeah.
Is your lottery a blind lottery or a weighted lottery?
So we do a first consideration with 80%, and then a second consideration, and that lottery is based on counselor recommendation. Yeah, counselor recommendation. So it's 80-20.
Like you said, Scott. No sense reinventing it.
No.
That's why I asked the question.
I know, I mean, it's just, yes, and yes, and we've been the other way. So,
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that we can go ahead and flip the switch.
Okay, all right.
Tomorrow, and I'll try to get some flyers out for our Family Resource Center ribbon cutting.
Okay.
And then we just coordinate with Katie and her team.
Yep. So what I have already made up is I have like a counselor one sheet that has links to application, deadline, open house sign up, promotional video. And then I have a parent one sheet that has the same kind of thing. There's a promotional video on there that where they came out and filmed students on campus this year. So it's going to be, I asked them not to do this, but I wanted them to do it when maybe the masks were off because it's going to be obsolete in a year, but they're all in masks. So yeah. So I'll share that with you
Yeah,
and
that'd be fantastic. And I can just print it off and so.
We just send that out to the high school and to our media.
We will. I want to let Katie and her team disseminate that out. I'm sure she'll work with Chris.
So one group that I see that is in our district that might be more interested than some is our group of homeschoolers that are patrons of the district.
Yep.
Some of them do participate in sport. Are they being made aware of this too somehow?
So this is something for your district to kind of have a conversation about. In our district in Beaverton, in order for homeschooled students to have credits that come into the district, those homeschool credits have to be from supported by an accredited institution. And so when we have that 12 credit requirement, often homeschool students have a diploma or a transcript that is not accredited. And so they can't bring in any credits. And unfortunately, they can't graduate on time. And so that is the one. We have students who come from private schools and things like that. But the 12 credit piece is a challenge for some homeschool environments.
So private schools that are accredited versus
Exactly.
non-accredited.
Yep.
And they say, well, I have an accreditation, but it's from a religious organization other than.
Yeah, and at least in our district, it has to be accredited from Cognia, which is like they do a lot of them. And most of the religious schools are accredited through that program. So we have a lot of students from various ones in Washington County. But the problem is that if they don't have those credits, then you have kind of a double standard. You're telling a student in your district that's currently enrolled that you have to have 12 credits. And the one who is not is transferring in with 0 credits, and you have a double standard there. And that was an issue in the past in our program where, we're saying no to one and yes to another, unfortunately.
One way that will work with that bill is as we stand up our homeschool program coming out of the Family Resource Center, we'll make sure families understand that if you want to access early college high school, you're going to want to then enroll in our high school for their freshman, sophomore year. So then we can move forward.
So like if they're going to the Ontario School District or one of those has an online school that's fully.
Yeah, our Connections Academy is accredited. A lot of those online schools, the Baker one is all accredited. So yeah, we have a lot of students that come through those programs. Some of those programs themselves have their own early college-like program as well. The difference is that they won't be able to participate in the home high school.
Certainly if they have a college program and you live in French Glen, Oregon, you're gonna have a hard time commuting to pieces.
Yeah. Yep.
Kelly's point out, we do have a virtual academy. So if a parent really wanted to go that route, they could do a virtual academy and then.
Yeah. They would just, like we said before, they would just need to know that when they're coming from that virtual environment, they're coming into an in-person environment.
Any other questions?
Last question,
Yes.
just because, so we talked about all the great things about this program. All of the wonderful things. Have we not talked about anything that would be a negative for a student to enter into this? Just to cover the base.
Well, I mean, I think when you enter the college environment, the transcript is permanent. So we often, when a student is struggling academically, we talk about risks and reward. And if a student is struggling academically and they want to stay in the program, there is that risk of damaging your college transcript. Now, if students are communicating with us, and if students are communicating with us, then we have all these mitigating opportunities so that that doesn't happen. And then certainly during the pandemic, I was sending emails to PCC on a very frequent basis, telling them to even waive the withdraw requirement because of, COVID. Like, hey, like the student withdrew, like, do we need to put a W on their transcript? It's the middle of COVID. What's going on? So there is that. Yeah. Most of the time, the students, when they're leaving our program, it's their personal choice. And I think I feel like if we have counseled students and been very clear with parents when they are struggling, that it's not me having to be the heavy. It's we've all kind of come to this conclusion as a group. But that would be the one risk. Yeah.
And that brings to mind, are there any impacts to financial aid offerings down the road?
Well, if you take a real big dip on your transcript, yes. So the Oregon promise is 2.0 GPA. That just came down from 2.5, so that's good. But if you dip below that, then obviously that's going to hurt your ability to access things like Oregon promise or financial aid. The courses that they take count against Oregon promise also. So the state is not going to allow them 180 credits, right? They're going to give them 90. So these classes count. So when they do withdraw, that's that's a 4 credit. There's 4 credits that you lost. Okay. So that's another risk. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. And you had your hand.
I would imagine it's a rare situation where students withdrawn and then not being able to complete an on-time high school graduation.
That is rare. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is rare. When that happens, it's typically because of interrupted learning. So, hospitalization, medical, that kind of thing. That is, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, really appreciate you letting me come out and talk. And I will send you an email tomorrow and Katie an email. And
Yeah, sounds great. And I'll forward on the flyer that Michael sends and you guys can click.
Watch the video. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you,
so much.
everybody.
Drive safe.
Yeah, we'll do.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, you have to drive all the way around.
He specified a whole bunch of things that they do.
Oh, never mind. So glad to be permanent.
Yes.
My
Right.
You're very close.
They were in there for 300.
Last second,
And then reference center, we show you.
Yeah, 5 conflicts for 300.
That's part of it. But we have to have the teachers. meeting. I'm just saying, maybe we should do some of those same actions.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you,
read a
Fred.
little faster. Yeah, it's just,
And I think that they
I mean, I know we're.
personal plan, like a graduation plan for every child that's tracked closely. And that's what they have to do.
Anyway,
I thought I heard from somebody really.
but apparently not.
Still waiting.
Anyway, I just heard that and went, and it's just one of those things that the question is gonna always come up as to whether. Sounds like a great program for us to support.
It's exciting.
All right, that brings us to 5.2 Superintendent Report.
Frankie, you should put. Or actually, for us. Thank you. Here we go. So I've got a number of things on my agenda that I wanted to share. And then I wanted to give you a little bit of an update too on construction. So the first thing that's up here, and Jessica alluded to it at our pre-budget training module that she put on for us. We are, and you can look, see if my laser works here. We are at almost 3% above where we were last year above projections. which is good news. Most school districts are about 5 to 10 percent below. And so, this is a residual of our housing market in St. Helens and Columbia County, the complex that just opened up. I'm anticipating that'll continue to grow as developments open in town, as well as the new housing. So that's good news. And as Jessica said, with the state, as the state's number of students have shrunk and ours have grown, there's a set number for the budget. So if you have, for example, you start out with 100 kids and each kid is given $1 of an allocation. If you now have 90 kids, then you have 1.1 dollars for every. So we're in a situation where the number of students that go to public school have shrunk. In our case, we've actually added. So we not only have more students than we've had in the past, we're also receiving a little bit more funding. So as a need counter, a budget, that's good news for us. And I, knock on wood, continue to see that moving forward.
We do have quite a bit of fluctuation there, that you kind of saw that we were losing.
We lost 50 students in the last February, March.
Yeah, but then we had a COVID shift and they decided, okay, I'm gonna try and come back, but we've definitely lost some seniors.
Yeah, and we should look back and see how typical this is. And that's why, look at the total percentage at the end. We were averaging about not quite 3% throughout the big years.
So wait a minute, is that difference, that's year over year difference for that month? That's not, so we have to kind of look at that a little differently. I looked at it and I said 179 extra students in September, and now we're down to 93. We've lost half of our new students. That's not necessarily
Not the
true.
bottom line.
Right.
It's a year over year.
Maybe some of the actual. total.
Yeah, I was reading those numbers incorrectly.
So like started out with 79.
Yeah. I go, holy, what's happening here? What's that trend line? And really, between September and March, we actually increased 19 students. If you look at the 2021 ADM.
Yep.
So it looks like we've lost 80, but we gained 19. I'm a little happier now than I was just a second ago. I'm a lot happier.
Any other questions on?
No, yeah. Well, I'll show you.
The next item on the agenda is enrollment or graduation requirements. That was something that Smith asked us to have a discussion. So I pulled this up, Kelly, for us. This is the state requirements. For us in St. Helens, we have requirement for graduation is at 24 credits. The difference comes right in this area here, where it's world language, arts, and career tech education. For the state requirement, you have to have 3 credits in any of these 3 areas, and then you have 6 electives. Look at the St. Helens graduation requirements. It's the same, except when you get down to the bottom part where 2 credits of world language, 2 credits of technical education, 2 credits of arts. And then you get 3 electives for the total of 24. My concern a little bit is in here world language. I spoke with Principal Wagner. So they've signed waivers, and we're also hiring additional Spanish teachers. I'm not sure if that was a question, but that's a concern.
And they have how many opportunities for credit?
They have 32 opportunities for credit. So that's the benefit of the.
So they can still take more electives than just 3. They're not limited to 3 electives.
Absolutely.
Is Spanish the only world language we offer?
Yes.
Is there any way to
We
adjust that?
Yeah,
Some form of fashion.
we've been working really hard to try to hire American Sign Language, because we thought that would be a good option for kids. It's just the market for teachers is tight. We did have a program where we were partnering with PCC, and I think the PCC sign language program went away, if I can call the most recent discussion.
That person got hired off.
Yeah.
Can you go back to that one?
Is there a way to do some sort of like St. Helens teacher that is supporting students learning some sort of virtual language from PCC?
There's other programs too where we can pick up virtual language. So that could be something that we could look into, and it may be a necessity.
While I understand Spanish being very important, I also know students can be excited about other languages as well. If we're only tailoring
Right.
ourselves to one.
Right, 100%. And I, just from personal experience, my middle son, I was concerned that he would struggle with a foreign language because he struggled with English. Became a good writer and good reader, but that was always a challenge. So a whole nother language was a concern. He chose Japanese. I asked why the heck did you choose Japanese? But he's a lot smarter than I am. And he said, well, Dad, they're characters. And the language is so much different than English. I could memorize it and I wouldn't get confused. So, to your point, perhaps a Chinese option is something that we should be looking into as well. Japanese.
That really holds true. I know my own son, they had reading challenges and writing challenges significantly. The chemistry was very easy for him. Until you had vocabulary questions, and then that just part didn't work. But he could do chemistry and math, and that's great because it was simple. And so different brains work different ways, and there are possibly opportunities. And I don't hear well enough to take a foreign language. Every language is becoming foreign. But
It's funny, so on the summer program, I went and registered some kids. And the way the online registration is, it has English and it lets right into the Spanish. There's no differentiation. Some of them have like a hyphen, but it's just running together. So in my mind, since I have a little bit of knowledge of Spanish, I like have running and I have like, I had to back myself up like every single time. Because you read it all together. So my point on this is I really feel like we should suspend those requirements. And if they do choose to have 3 years of career tech, or 3 credits of career tech and no world language, that's fine. I think that matching the state requirements there would be important, and just instead of doing the waivers and multiple of them, just suspend them and let's move on for a couple of years while we deal with the COVID shuffle.
I think if that's something the board would want to do, certainly let's have some more conversation. I would imagine part of the I don't want to say argument, but part of the debate from the high school would be not all students know if they're wanting to go into a 4-year institution, but if we have a 2-year requirement on world language, that's a requirement to get into Portland State, Oregon State, most universities. And by having that there,
I would think that Portland State's gonna have to make those exceptions too, because that just didn't happen.
maybe.
And then they're gonna find that those students that took them online are not strong.
that's why we
In
have
that
community
language.
colleges.
Well, and I think that there is a backup option for the community college, but that also goes to my point of you can shrink down some of those because you can get a community college credit, which is then weighted heavier than 2 years in high school language. I think I would advocate that students get exposed to different languages just as a regular course of business. I just think if we limit it to Spanish, I think it's doing a service to options to students that may be more interested in something else.
And we could be doing it for our juniors and seniors with the intent that our freshmen and sophomores would still be on track. But I definitely think that it would help those that are struggling meet those requirements right now, because they just haven't been available.
Would we have numbers on what the number of students would be in that to see if that is a significant component or if we need to triage more individually?
Well, I wouldn't say in just the world language though either, because there's,
Well, I
Those
know that
other
there are
areas.
kids that, I mean, I kind of agree that why sign a waiver if a kid is just not wanting to take a foreign language? Doesn't want to take a foreign language, it doesn't do well in other languages, that we say, oh, okay, we're gonna put one more word in front of you for graduation.
yeah.
There's,
So,
although, if they're gonna go into the trades, they're probably better served to take the Spanish. I mean, literally, they'll make more money. So,
so what I'm hearing is the board would like to entertain removing the 2-year requirement for now. Interested in having more options beyond Spanish for students, feeling that that's kind of a hindrance. But then I also heard from Kelly and Bill, let's just put it to what the state standard is for now, and then let's build a plan on, I didn't hear that part, but I'm distracted. Build a plan to bring back when we're gonna want to put this back in place. But for the juniors and seniors, just do the 16.
well,
Yeah.
I really wonder, what the impact would be on the arts and CTE. There's kids that truly want those, there's kids that truly don't want those. And I know that the kids that truly don't want CTE, they're interested in taking wood shop or an auto shop or metal shop, that they have to take that, or now there's other options. They can do cooking and other things in health careers, so we have a little more variety than we had. But, those don't necessarily make the class go better for the kids that are in there really trying to work.
Yeah, right.
True. I would, and I'll play the devil's advocate a little bit here.
Sure.
I believe that this piece right here is what's helped establish our district as being a very strong high school CTE programs, because there's students who never thought they would want to be a welder, but ended up getting off to the welding class because they had to take the class and it was the only one that could schedule, and they became welders. Or they found another CTE program because they were required to participate in the CTE piece. So that would be my hesitation here. I think what we need to do, continue to have a discussion now, and when the discussion we're ready to move on, I'll go back to the high school and talk with Katie and say, here's what the board is thinking, and let's start developing a plan and have her bring back a proposal to the board as far as kind of a post-COVID plan, so to speak. Does that sound?
I'm still really interested in suspending it for now.
Right.
Without the plan.
Right, but
Okay.
about.
But have a plan, you can have a going forward plan.
Because I would also argue to your point, like if we have really strong counselors, that they would know their students well enough to you do love art and you are very tactile, maybe you should try this welding class, and they will be able to work that out, knowing their student.
I know that as a physics teacher, I used to work very hard to get my kids into Mr. Shersted's metal shop class. And because I said, look, you guys want to be an engineer, and I don't want dumb engineers. I want engineers that know how to make stuff. And we worked together. The one thing that we had to work out was that, like in mechanical drawing, in Tanger's group, kids would take it and then they couldn't, their lettering wasn't perfect, and they get their only B in high school for taking the CTE class. And so we had to make an agreement that, hey, if I send you this straight A student and he makes an honest attempt at doing all his work, he's gonna get an A, or I'm not sending him. And they were actually, those kids became the leaders, and they brought a bunch of their friends, and the whole nature of the program was improved by them changing their mindset of what we grade and how we grade it, and And so I know that those were sought after classes, they were completely full. So we can do the CTE thing, but making it a have to rather than I get to sometimes is it's a disadvantage to the program itself. You know, that kids don't have a positive experience because they went out there and they tried it. And, well, it was really hard to get the project done. Somebody was messing. It's always a problem. We've been have some incomplete projects from high school.
I think I understand where the board wants to go. And I'll go back to the high school. I am curious. I think maybe checking in with some of our, I'm wondering about what our CE teachers would feel.
I would still encourage them. I mean, you still recruit it out and try to get kids to take them. There are some kids that just.
While we're getting some information and data, can we also check in on our seniors and what their on track is and passing for each subject percentage?
If we have 20 seniors that aren't passing world languages and they're passing everything else, and that's
Anything else?
I'm okay with the temporary suspension, but they want a whole lot of data to completely remove. I think exposing students to things that they would normally would say I have no interest in doing, they're still very undeveloped in the vast majority of their lives, and they have no idea what they want. And so I think giving an opportunity, because we're saying you need to do this, you don't like it, great, you only have to do it for the short period of time in your life, then you don't do it again. But oftentimes there are any number of things that, well, I would have thought I'd hated that, and all of a sudden it strikes something. So I do get concerned about just kind of permanently suspending that, given the pandemic and everything else. I absolutely advocate that we do what's best for the students that are most impacted with the shortest amount of time to solve that.
That's good. Helen?
She wanted to say something. Yeah, the arts program.
Oh, I went in correction. We didn't make a school requirement. Want the foreign language.
There's many types of art out there.
I know I'm starting to think so. I really.
All right.
Sister was from band from teacher.
Good conversation. I did also, there's Senate Bill 744. That was passed in the big session.
What?
All right, I can forward this to you as a PDF. I'll forward this to you as a PDF. Essentially, we haven't had new, we haven't reviewed as a state, I say we, the ODE has not reviewed graduation requirements since 2007. And so they're required, this requires them to do a review of all the requirements for graduation and have a report on September 1st, 2022. So we may, in this
Our conversation may be moved.
it may be, they may say everyone's doing 2 years or not. So I'm curious, and I thought based on our,
We'll go with the 2026 start.
yeah. But I mean, based on our conversation tonight, I thought it was probably appropriate to share that there may be some changes in the future and this recent.
So that one says temporarily suspend the requirement for students to demonstrate proficiency in the essential skills. I'm assuming that that's the core, correct?
Yeah, and there was a lot of media about the essential skills and suspending that.
That was a test-driven conversation, right?
It's a test, and also you can meet those essential skills, or you could through work samples and writing and math. But the misnomer is just because a kiddo wasn't able to pass a test, or that let me back up, just because we're not requiring students to reach a certain point on a test or submit a work sample, doesn't mean they're not providing high quality work in the classroom that's expected from the instructor. And so the way that Oregonian ran that out in their headlines was they're not requiring kids to do what they used to. No, the same requirements where the classrooms get A, B, C or whatever the term, right?
More like you said a minute ago, where it's the IEP for each child, where they're showing proficiency with the teacher.
Right, as opposed to a test that, I think, how many students out there out of that particular
Yeah,
test
yeah.
to have that conversation?
Yes, yes.
So, okay.
Okay, the next thing on the list is, we do a great job in this district, building our calendars 2 years in advance. Although sometimes that can cause a little bit of a hiccup, and that's what's happened here. Traditionally, the spring break is right there in that third week. For whatever reason, universities and the majority of the state, when they built their calendars last year, moved spring break to the last week in March. And so to align with the rest of the state, we're highly or strongly recommending that we move spring break to align with the rest of the state.
How many are not? Are we alone in that?
I don't have those numbers, I can get them for you. Most districts that aren't aligned with the rest of the state are districts that are bordering states like Idaho, and my guess is Hermiston.
Hermiston.
Is the line up with Washington.
So Scotty's with the fourth week?
Scott is the fourth week, Oregon State is the fourth one. They're all the fourth week.
I don't mind being opposite. It really helps.
I mean,
I will tell you that you will have many people unhappy if we're not. But there are benefits.
The only good thing is with Oregon having the odd week, you could go to Disneyland and you didn't have any waiting lines. You could go to the beach, you could go to lots of places, you could take off and go on vacation, and your spring break was the week before everybody else's, and you were just kind of getting more done with the break.
so I always like to ask the question, why? Why do we have the alignment? What is the value and the purpose of this? And I'm a bit of a renegade and a rebel, and I've always kind of envisioned a different calendar to begin with. But this is one of those components where, why do we adjust ourselves to fit something else when what we had worked for us and we created this system? It wouldn't work.
Because I'm a mom with kids in both districts, and I
same.
need them to be the same.
And to your point though, our design was to originally line up with everyone else. We just built this ahead of time and didn't catch that there had been a change. So that's why we're making the change now. To Kelly's point, we've got families in both districts, in private schools, in colleges. We have spouses, we have teachers that are teaching in this district but live in other districts, which that's their problem. However, that's why we want this, to your point.
Otherwise, I'm totally.
I just get a little uncomfortable with always adjusting to other things as opposed to, because let's say next year they switch it back and then they keep switching and altering.
Well, they will.
Right,
It
so,
doesn't ever seem to be
But our intent was to be aligned with everyone else. If our intent was that we want to have it on the third week because the third week aligns with something that we special at St. Helens, some sort of festival, and that allows kids to freely go to that, then I think, yeah, we would maybe push and say, but the intent was generally we want to line up the rest of the states.
We could produce a 23-24 calendar right now.
oh, sure.
And it might change a little, but it might not. But I know that in our family, listening to the various relatives, some jobs require you're 18 months out, everybody's picking their vacations. And you just kind of like to know when there's going to be some time available to be with your family and choose a vacation. And that's why the 2-year plan came around.
Right.
Just so families could say, hey, a year, I can't do it this year, but a year from now or a year and a half from now, I want to go to XYZ for spring break, and I would need to plan it now and start And so that's what people do, and they get together with everybody. And, I mean, it's the logistics thing is really nice. We were actually giving people the school calendar in September, and then people already had their vacation, so they just went and didn't care what we did.
Well, and I still say that last week of March was spring break forever. It didn't matter. You didn't even have to have this in your hand because as a parent, you knew it was the last week of March. That's why I even questioned.
It moved
Yeah.
on us, yeah.
I know, but on the other meeting, when I said, okay, I figured maybe this year was because April 1st was on the Friday and spring break. So I thought, well, that must make that the week before. But I know forever, everybody knew that Oregon was on the last week and Washington was on the first week. And that weekend in the middle was a nightmare, no matter where you went, because everybody was there, whether it was the beach or wherever it may be. Both states were there. And so that's why it's like, when did that change? Anyway, parents didn't have to have this calendar from us for that one particular week because they knew it was always the last week.
Is there any impact to learning environments, one direction or the other? Because you're adding a week to one term or does that?
Early releases on their school November.
What's that? Oh, school event.
I'm not
Quarter is
familiar
still
with
middle
that
day.
month that you referenced.
The month where there's like 5 days that
Uh,
students go to school.
We could have that discussion. I know though, as far as providing professional development, we try to schedule those out through the year.
We still have the 10th,
With the teachers.
21st. I'd love to change that. Our early releases.
Go ahead.
I think there was one more update. Juneteenth thing got updated after. Slideshow, but what's in there and in the.
Okay.
Is correct.
Thank you for that. Ms. Smith, we could certainly consider that. I'd like to entertain that with my leadership team to see, how that impacts.
I think that if we're working on a month that really affects parents and where there's very little learning done, we should be talking about making adjustments.
Until today, but it sure fits.
Yes, it must be mom
The
point.
good
but
news
it's
is that we
definitely-
no longer have the carol contest consuming every available data.
That's true.
That's,
Oh, come on, that was a,
it was great, but it was a challenge to get it.
what was worse is when you worked about it, so it didn't cancel the whole thing.
Yes.
That was even worse.
So in your packet, we've got I guess I have a whole calendar. That's one
Day off.
day off. Yeah. The green would move to Tuesday. That is Monday the 19th, which is Juneteenth, a new federal holiday that celebrates the notification of slaves being free in Texas, and President Biden recently signed that. We are in the process of working with our associations on what that means. Generally, it's not going to impact teachers, but in this case, it does. So we have to have a conversation on what that looks like, able it is, with all three groups. So something we noted, we believe we've got an agreement with our classified folks on how we're going to treat this. But we also talk about it.
Do you know when summer school starts for states and colleges?
I do not. Generally, it starts that.
I'm starting to worry that we're pushing into our teachers that are working on furthering their education are
Well,
actually coming into conflict here.
could be, bear in mind that the purple is make up snow days.
Sure.
So
But
that,
if
so
you have
it's
a
a-
class on the 19th or registration, I don't know. That's why I was just asking that question.
right. Well, that's currently teacher work day. So what they do
Yeah.
is they get their
Get their
grades
stuff
done
together.
ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure that out for ourselves here.
Really, so like, again,
The solution is to just start the week before Labor Day.
we're offsetting those early releases. We didn't always have them. We could do every other, and then we're making up the time where we're not pushing it this late.
Timelines.
So you'd have the in-seat time, even if you were doing early release every other again. Or taking away the one. from the other.
I would be hesitant of removing any days.
Any full days.
Yeah.
You just want to change them. Oh, I'm totally not really for that. But I do think you could make up some of those times.
Early release, we, when we're not in COVID, because we haven't had as many trainings because of capacity wise. But we do utilize those early release Wednesdays quite a bit in trainings.
As a parent, though, I would argue that you could definitely train from 3:30 or even 3 to 4:30 in that range. Whereas we always went full time, and it wasn't until the last 6 years that they started.
Well, it's been longer than that.
Yeah.
We doing that when I was teaching.
Yeah, we've had
But it was
them,
like every other, the time would be out,
but
or 1 month.
what we've given up though with the, let's say, early release is full day professional development in service space.
You saw teacher work day, teacher work day.
Those
They're not
those
done
are
on
great
professional
days.
development.
They're not, so.
Teacher work day.
It's, they'll work on their grades.
I call them credit card.
It's not, there would be no, if you remove all the Wednesdays, there would be no
Not credit card.
professional development.
Well, they might be that.
So we need to add back full day. And then your no school November we have days off in October, days off in January. Every
We're
quarter.
still
there'd be
going
a
to
day.
school less so than
No.
many other
Right.
states.
States, yes. Districts, no. Not within the.
So we
Just a conversation, saying what you're talking about.
no, I think it's a great conversation, and this is 22-23. We have 23-24 mapped out, but I think that would be a conversation to bring back to the board, so we really want to get a look at this. And show us, I think what would be helpful is to say, show us what you're doing on those Wednesdays. Right, what are we doing? So not only, the board sees, but also community sees, here's what's going on the Wednesdays.
And we just had a really great opportunity with Zoom and how parents can show up to conferences in a really fast way. And maybe we don't need conferences built in the way they are.
I can tell you that if everybody is as productive as Columbia City School was on Friday mornings during COVID, that you're doing a lot of good work on those Wednesdays. Their meetings were good enough that I set the alarm to attend them. So there is a lot of professional development that can go on with cooperation and correct leadership.
So when we do that conversation about what you're doing on those Wednesdays, I always like to hear knowledge acquisition and then actual examples of skill application. So professional development is great, but it's trivia if it's not applied. So what are we doing with that professional development? That's what I would like to hear about.
The why.
Not just the why, but the how.
Yep. We can.
Because I absolutely believe in professional development, love training. But we have training warriors and then we have people that go out and actually apply what they're learning. So I would like to see that.
That sounds great. We've got a lot of really strong programs from Center for Educational Leadership out of the University of W. That we'd love to talk about. There's the work that's going on at Columbia City, the EL or expeditionary learning. We've got, you can see kind of around the room, some of the work that our professional learning teams are doing. This is from first grade and second grade, I believe, talking about learning targets, productive level of learning. It might be really good to have them come and talk about what they're doing so you guys can see it. So I'll see if I can get that right. All right, so back to this, we need to add the Juneteenth, and I believe we should move spring break to a line. Is that an action item or is that? All right. So are there any other questions for me about that? Good conversation. It's so nice to be in person where we can. It's like we're
getting something done.
You're muted.
Yeah.
You can actually hear melody for once.
Say, can't hear it all, can't rock it all.
All right, so let's move on to my next piece, and this is on your list, but it's under this our wildflower play collective flyer. Say that 3 times fast. This is a group that's interested in leasing the CRYC building at Bachelor Flat. The CRYC program is put on pause for a variety of reasons: COVID, low enrollment, staffing. If and when we bring it back up, and I know that we have some board members that it's not if, it's just when, and that's fine. Likely we'd house it out of Plymouth. We've got a greenhouse that isn't put together, but is ready to be put together out there. We've got wetlands here. I think it would be a great tie-in even with the Plymouth program and have aspects of CRYC. But with that said, we're not sure if we'll be accessing that facility or not. And so, we were approached by the brewers, and we were approached by Wildflower prior to that too. So this is a play co-op collective. I could go through and kind of describe it to you, but we have Emilia here. Yes, not so many properly.
Okay.
We have Amelia here. I think it would be better if she just kind of shared what her vision is.
So you made her smile when she said her name, so that's better.
Would you mind? That put that spot?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't print it out, so.
They all have a copy.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So, we're a nonprofit, and we're a group that was started by a bunch of parents, and we were all experiencing that we didn't have anywhere to go in inclement weather that we experienced half of every year, and so ended up at McDonald's a lot in the play space. And I moved out here from Portland, and there's a program there that's called St. John's Swap and Play. So it's a nonprofit membership based, and members can access this indoor play space anytime during open hours, and it really becomes a very supportive, nurturing community. And so we decided to bring that exact model and apply it here. So we got a grant from the Columbia Pacific CCO specifically to open and also to reduce childhood trauma and to provide a trauma-informed program. And we are also an active member in the trauma-informed network that is newly launched in Columbia County. And so basically the overview is that
as we're re-engaging after COVID, we've experienced, especially parents with young children, a lot of isolation, and it's been super hard. And we see this space as a way for families to reconnect, to recreate the idea of a supportive village that is really lacking in the current culture that we live in, and to be a way for families to access resources like parenting classes, support groups, and things that currently are really only available for families that are within the system. And so we're really excited. Part of having a trauma-informed space is having a space that has really good lighting and has these different kind of like tick marks of being inviting and supportive. One of the aspects of our program through our grant is to provide free and reduced memberships to families with Oregon Health Plan. And so that's one of the things that we'll be doing. Before the pandemic, we were about to open, we had found a space in town and we had rented it, we set it all up, and we were a week from our opening, and then COVID happened and we had to pack it all up and put it all in storage. So we're ready to go. We have a really beautiful indoor play structure, and we carry our own insurance. And so I guess that's kind of the overview. We have a couple of little testimonials on here. Yeah, I think that, do you have any questions?
Well, I think there's a couple things too, that if you can help clarify.
Okay,
The time of the program,
okay,
how people sign up. And
yeah,
I know that, you and I talked a couple times, the concept of the card lock or key entry and the access for parents to kind of, work away from home, and the co-opting of the duties of running the program.
yeah. Part of this model from St. John's is that it's very much, there's a lot of volunteer time that's expected from members to clean and help with the running of the organization. And there would be each member would have like a fob like the gym has, that they could access the space with, or a code. And the model is, trying to remember the other question.
The access,
Yeah,
how parents sign up, maybe costs.
Yeah.
Some of the,
yeah, so people would sign up and have an ongoing membership that would be like a Squarespace or a PayPal kind of thing. They would sign up on our website. There would be a member handbook and a bunch of agreements that they would agree to. We also plan on creating a orientation that would help us in creating the culture that we're looking for, and really aiming to
So
be
how does a person
inclusive.
sign up?
So on the website, so they would go on the website and they would fill out the forms on the website. So yeah,
And what is your full cost if somebody doesn't have?
so it would be sliding scale. So there would be different tiers.
Sure, there's a cost.
Yeah, and it's just, based on an honor system. And so I've even had another woman with older children in the area say, like, I love this, I wish this was there when my children were little, I would really love to just have a membership, even though my kids are old, and support, basically like support another family to be able to come. So we'd like to have that as an option too. So basically it'd be like from like $30 a month to like $50 a month. And then there would be work trade options as well as free memberships, and then like.
It's not
very-
250.
Oh, no. No, and we're a nonprofit, so we can also fundraise another way. But the model in our business plan is really to be financially self-sufficient, that we aren't dependent on grants to run the program. And that's what we see with this model that's successful in Portland. So. And they have 200 members in Portland.
So how does this compare with some of the programs that we're doing in the city recreation?
It is similar. So this is targeted to like the preschool age, so 0 to 6. And so it would be similar to the open play that they do. And it would just be expanded hours. So probably like 12 hours a day. And so it would fit
Basically,
into
two moms
schedule.
to get together and say, hey, let's go over there.
Yeah, or like, hey, can you watch my kid? Let's meet, I'll drop them off there. And I'm gonna go to my appointment, I'll meet you back there. And we also, before, we were looking into creating a co-working scenario, so parents that work from home could be on site and have the ability to work while their children were being watched on site. So that's something that, depending on the space, that we would love to pursue. We did have insurance previously that was fine with everything that we were doing, so that's always a consideration.
Have you gotten to take a tour out there?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we have a base for how much it would cost in our,
We don't have a lot of time.
usually we kind of run. What's the costing? How much is it to water the grass before you do?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd recommend if the board wants to continue looking at this, that like a lease agreement of all terms be
Yeah,
enumerated.
it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be our regular building use. It would have to be the one.
Partnership. Yes.
And another piece of this too is that maybe potentially, if it was working for all parties, that we could see it as a long-term home for this program. We really are trying to build into this design of how we're designing this organization longevity. So so if the space would work, potentially being there long-term would be great. But other than that, we're very interested in proving that this program is viable here, is something that's making a positive difference in our community. And then we could see that we have more options of where we could be housed in the future, including having something built to our needs potentially, or working with the county. We were talking about the John Gum School, but before we prove the concept, we can't really ask that.
Have you reached out to the rec department about potential partnership options with them?
Yeah, we have, and the thing that is difficult is that basically like the value proposition of the whole model is that there is wide flexibility in accessing the space, and having a dedicated space has been difficult to find. And even when they bought this with this new building that they have, we reached out to see if their the original space would be available, and it seemed like they had other plans, so we definitely pursued it.
So how do you vet those people that are caring for children? I've got a mom that says, okay, I'll be there tomorrow, and somebody else is gonna leave their children in their care. What assurances do we have that person is an appropriate?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is not a childcare facility
Sure.
primarily. It's more like a children's museum where you stay on site. But if I was watching my friend's child there, then it would just be the relationship with that person. But there also will be agreements of how children are being cared for in this public space. And that's something we would deal with in our member handbook. And because our grant is really focusing on preventing childhood trauma, we really want to emphasize the understanding of child development and of brain development and of appropriate expectation, and trying to normalize parent education, and then bringing back that element of just support, because the way that we see it, parents aren't supposed to do everything by themselves with very small children.
So that you wouldn't have things like, okay, we're gonna do a records check on each member, so.
I mean, because parents are there on site with their kids, that's not something, I mean, it's something that we could potentially do, but it's certainly if there was a person that was, like, for example, the program that I mentioned before of on-site childcare, then those people, we would be making sure we're vetted, we're safe. I think safety of children is utmost. Yeah, did I answer that? Well,
Yeah, I mean, you gave me an idea.
so it's really nice having, so the program in Portland is 13 years old, and being able to reach out to them and ask them how they handle these things and how it works for them. So
There wouldn't necessarily be a staff member on all times.
not necessarily, no. But there definitely would be a volunteer that would be expected to do certain duties to close it down. The place would not be, you wouldn't be able to access it with your key outside of certain hours. There would be a person every evening to make sure that there was no one in there and everything was cleaned and put away. And so, yes.
I know I always wanted something like this when I had.
Yeah.
Always had. I hated the problem.
Melody was always
And I
there.
take my kids, no, everywhere else.
Yeah.
And everybody leaves though when I show up with my kids.
But the peas smell of May.
Including all the people that were eating. He wrote that for them. We have a whole list.
I would love to see your handbook and to get that more information from our business manager, what it would actually look like. Yeah, I'd be for exploring it.
Yeah, and this isn't a book type, this is just intro, here's what the program is, so we can wrap our heads around it. I'm so glad that you're able to do this.
Thank you, I wasn't sure.
Can I ask you a quick question? The only thing that came to my mind was that I do know how many parents that we, moms particularly, that are in town that do not have access to an automobile. And so that was my only concern. It's not because I'm trying not to be there, but that is part of this. It's not like sitting there, hey, let's just get in the stroller and we'll walk there. At least nice dry days, well, that's it's not even safe to walk there.
No, I agree with you, and that's definitely a drawback of that particular location. We have really looked and looked for places in St. Helens and had numerous frustrating experiences trying to access spaces in St. Helens. They're not in very good repair. Expensive, very, very expensive for the wall crumbling down and the.
So you had previously access to space and obviously that. Size-wise, how does the space that you had previously compare to?
The previous space we had was the tea time building that's downstairs there. And honestly, I was really concerned that that space was not big enough for this model and that it would not actually work because it was. And so I think in a lot of ways, it was good that we didn't end up using that space. So a larger space, a more open space, I think will work a lot better. But the location is great. You know, we can't keep it the knowledge, right?
Any other questions?
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
It was actually really interesting. So.
Well, if you ever have any interest, we have budget committee openings and we have all sorts of things that you can become involved in.
I'm a farmer and a teacher.
Oh.
All right, so I have one more thing.
So actually, she wants to help with CRYC. Because she has head.
Sounds like it.
Actually, that is, I love native plants, so.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right.
I think my only other question on that is how much the maintenance is accessing that site, if there would be any issue.
I don't think we access it at times, more storage area, but we do have a fair amount of equipment there from when we used for. There is space, because most of it is downstairs, so when we toured and we talked about locking out the downstairs, there's equipment upstairs that would have to be moved, which would take, we've got a great crew, so they can do it.
But then the maintenance, like if there's a parking lot full of cars and maintenance facilities trying to get something out of the shop, again, it would be.
Yeah, it could be.
Have a creative easement or something, yeah.
And we can also make improvements and if needed to build a fence or build an extension of a fence that we can handle things like that or.
I will say as we look at this option, the only concern I have is becoming some sort of landlord or, I mean, we're an educational program, we're not a landlord. And so it fits inside the educational model and the things that we are trying to adapt to. But that would need to be something that's emphasized. I don't want to just hold property. Be a landlord.
I think it like trying to do a 3 or 6 month start just to see and give them the experience and then reevaluate and be an awesome option.
Yeah, and I didn't mention that another thing that we are really interested in is focusing on early childhood priorities that the district has and how we can best support those priorities like early learning and social emotional learning and things like that. So we're in this, that's the other piece.
How many families do you currently have? I mean, you've obviously got a group of people that you can meet.
Yeah.
Is there
We have a
like
board.
3 families or 5 or?
Well, we have an email list that we have accumulated, but we're also really involved with the various Facebook groups that exist that support families with young children in the county. So,
I mean, is there some genuine interest?
I think from just my outsider perspective, I think she has at least 30 families if you're looking for a ballpark number. But I know some of those original families have
Grown out of it.
grown up.
Okay.
at that time. Yeah, but
422 likes on Facebook.
yeah, I've seen some really good interest in the families that are talking about it. And mothers, but I know that some do like that.
We've talked to people who are trying to do the same thing in chapters.
Cool. Yeah.
Regardless of the location, I think that what you're doing is amazing. It's
Yeah.
incredibly important. It's just, can we make it work for us and can we make it work for you?
My
We
question
start
is, would
bringing
it
the
be a
skeptics
copy
down
issue?
during this message.
Yeah.
I wonder how they coffee up.
Sorry, get out of it.
Ice cream Kelly.
How much are they paid?
It's like the whiskey psychiatrist. My friends.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the term, it's called pandemic baby.
Oh, yeah.
So you have a whole lot more to choose from at the moment than you might not have in years past.
Or pandemic dogs. Do you have a date for the dogs?
Okay, Mr. Stockwell, it's time to move along.
We're getting tired.
All right, but our chair slightly stepped out for a moment.
Yeah.
Well, I can start talking
Okay.
about, I'll set the stage. You've all seen this multiple times. This is a facility evaluation we did back in 2016. I use it just to set, as I said, set the stage. High school is the moderate one. We've taken care of the majors except for maintenance shop. We got the roof taken care of here at the district office. So our facilities are really, we're in good shape. What I hear though, in community and staff members concerned, I hear about knowing there's inflation going on, there's supply chain issues, and do we have enough money to build the school? What impact is that having on our school? And I will say, we have struggled with, and struggle is the wrong word, we've managed the inflation and the supply chain issues, and I try to help people wrap their head around it by talking about when we passed the bonds, we had enough money for one type of facility, and we've had to reduce it a little bit. So think about a home. You're going to build a home, a 3,500 square foot home on a 5-acre lot. It's going to be a beautiful home, but because of supply chain issues and inflation, you no longer can afford a 3,500 square foot home on 5 acres. You can now afford a 2,500 square foot home on 3 acres. Both homes are going to be beautiful. Both homes are going to serve the needs of your family. It's just you're working within the budget that you have. And so we're going to have a beautiful home that's going to be something that our community will be proud of, we'll be proud of, our students will be proud of. It's just been adjusted to fit in our budget. So I hope that, kind of helps wrap our minds around that. So I always love starting out with these pictures because they're my happy space with the ribbon cutting. I think that's one of the most beautiful middle schools around. It's a great facility. And then we have our high school, lots of great memories there, but there's lots of things that need to be removed. And so here we are removing those things that need to be removed. If you haven't,
No nostalgic feelings.
it's interesting, right? If you haven't had a chance to go online, I highly recommend that you go online and look at this and play around with the fast time and the screenshots go forward and backwards. Pretty amazing. So,
Yeah, those little 3 dots, if you go up there, you could, what is it, right steps through one at a time, the time lapse. The time lapse, you can do the whole thing in about 3 minutes. They're really moving those excavators.
So I put this up here. If you look at this right here, and this is what we did back in 2019, I believe, the fall 2019, trying to decide 35 million, 45 million, 50 million. We worked with community and we landed on, we can't build what we need to build for anything less than 50 million. And if you look at this design, it looks remarkably like this design. And this is the design that we've landed on. So you can see the two there. So I'm going to kind of walk you through where we're at. This is the most recent addition. Can you see my dot, or do you want me to just walk up and point? Is it easier if I just walk up and point for you guys?
I mean, I got my glasses on, I can see the dot.
Yeah, I don't care.
All right, so I'll be lazy and just point then.
Efficient.
I'll be efficient, thank you. So we've removed some classrooms in here and a few other places, but we've added what we wanted, the science, state-of-the-art science wing with connecting lab storage areas. We have the single space for the commons. What all strong schools have is your media library as a hub of the school. We've got that. Counseling is up in here. The classrooms configurations remain the same, although we've removed that extra hallway space that was where people ate lunches and were generally kind of disarray. Those are going to be gone, and we've increased the space here. In all the classrooms, the new carpet, new floors. It'll be as close to going into a new school as we can get. We're not doing right now in our base bid as much as we'd like here in building D, but there's a lot of really good things already here. We'll be redoing the bathrooms, there'll be some painting. As add alternates, and I'll show an add alternate list that I have. We do have plans on potentially adding more to that. In the gymnasium area, again, not a lot done here. We do have kind of a postponed seismic grant that we're eyeing that we may apply for again. We will do some significant cleaning up and freshening up of the locker room areas. There was a request to remove some walls in here. We're not going to be doing that just because of cost and infrastructure, but it will be cleaning things up significantly.
Are you right now they have a white hallway going down alongside the cafeteria, that hallway. Is that hallway remaining there?
No.
Or it's just that they haven't.
This
They haven't
is
made the cut yet.
right. This is all open to the commons area.
Okay.
This is just kind of designating this is this. So I'll start clicking through.
Oh yeah, I just.
Yeah. Again, not a lot done here. We're looking at either having a connection between the gym here or another. I think we've talked about covering it between here and here. I believe this is what we're hoping. This
There's
is
new buildings there at the bottom.
down here.
That does exist.
This is the
Wrestling. Oh,
this is wrestling.
And the other is a storage. Needs paint.
And what are you trying to connect those in?
The gym to the weight room. Yes.
Well, if you just put that upper level of bleachers up above, like I wanted to make that one room, that's something.
That was in the 3,500 square foot home. Yeah.
I'll figure out how to get those there.
Straight walls right there, and you can just put a roof on it.
Well, I think what they're gonna, right now, the way that they've done it is they have a 5-gallon can there and it's got 20 umbrellas in it. But we're working on improving on that and going to the 2,600 square foot.
Again, not a lot of change here, freshening up of everything in the auditorium as we hope to realize savings on bid day. More will be done in this area.
Do you know offhand how much of a percentage we still have in our contingency fund? Or is that a tomorrow question?
That is I believe, Jessica, do you recall, are we at like 6%? We haven't started tapping into it.
We did our construction or design.
Yeah, we have a number of different things.
Construction. But I feel like we will realize quite a few options of design after we adjust.
Topman adjusted the construction contingency.
Number went
Yeah.
down
Those were
35%
kind of
last
planning
year.
for the unknowns.
So bid day might.
But the design contingency has been slowly released as the plans are getting better refined. I don't think the construction contingency is really been.
I don't think so.
On this part here, I always felt like, even though, you know, it's nice to have big seats and form, whatever, the biggest issue everybody ever had in here is when the speakers would go down and electrical would mess up, and now you're talking, hoping that the audience could hear you because it no longer had the intercom system. And let me tell you what happened in the middle of the Elaine Lee's dance recital, and it got blasted out of everybody's ears. So that's my only concern, is that they have that part of the electrical and the speaker system is upgraded for anything that could happen in that building.
I believe we just bought a new soundboard, but there's also a
Yeah.
portable host system that, actually I spoke with Mr. Stearns, that he was advocating that we not only get another one for the high school, but have one for each of our elementary schools, because portable is
And they're pretty decent.
pretty good. Okay, here's the beginning of the new stuff. This is the cafeteria. These are open hallways. This is a health class. This is the coffee cart area. Upgraded bathrooms, the serving area, and then this is out onto the courtyard. This is not covered yet, but I'm very hopeful.
There's 2 posts there just in case you want.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be covered.
Sit out and enjoy lunch the second week of April.
That's right.
You can get 80 degrees and then get
That's
snow.
first we can do, that's it.
That's right. This is the drama class, and this is storage area. Okay. You know, sadly, we shifted our offices, and if you can remember, I'll back up real quick. We had the offices in this area, and we all felt that that was not the place to spend the money on a new building. We needed to spend it with students, and so that's what we've done through the science, and we pushed offices back into the old cafeteria area, which is right here. We have the two, we a little bit disappointed, but we put the music programs back to where they originally were, but they're being completely redone using acoustic engineers. Floors are being removed. These are going to be brand new spaces, and we wanted to make sure that we had a way for instruments to be wheeled down without having to access the lift here. So this is a hallway that gets us from one place to the other without having to carry xylophones and what other big instruments that are tough to carry. Nursing area is right here, conference room, offices throughout. This is a vestibule where once school starts, you have to come in here, go into the office area, check in before you can get into school.
Similar to this.
Similar to the school, exactly. Staff area right here.
Is the opening just below the biggest purple square? Is that the opening to be like where the boiler room is now?
Here,
Yeah. Or what is it?
yes, this is where the boiler is.
Okay.
The chimney is not there.
No, it's like,
Is it chimney on?
Well,
so really what I was asking about that one day, as far as having the no more outside access, only inside, we've got too many things in the way to really pull it off. Not have the outer steps all the way down.
You mean here, removing these?
Yeah, or that's where the outside ones are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think our original hole was below the prior room, wasn't it? And that's. been
That's what I was
fixed.
thinking, about something at one point that we talked about.
They're right there.
Right here.
Was it that? I thought it was up like the tail end of the building, but okay. That's not an actual student area anymore, though. so.
Correct. The original one, this was larger, right? And this is like a big entry
A big
area.
entryway.
But yeah, no, the entryways. Here are the science areas, connected, state-of-the-art stuff. I feel like we're really in good shape with this program.
Now you have an investigator over it, you know about that.
These are the upper part of building B. This is a staff room. This is a lion, kind of our closed closet type area. Conference room again.
Go back to the, so what was the seating for tables back by the old boiler room? Is that a staff room too? Yeah,
Here,
yeah,
yeah, that's the staff.
okay, go back. Thank you.
This is a counseling area here, kind of a larger area. These are classrooms. One of them, I guess, likely may be used as our
LCT.
well, no line like
Oh, leadership.
Carissa's program.
Okay.
College career. There's some special education classrooms in here with the move the wall. But for the most part, these configurations are the same except for making these a little bit wider. But again, new walls, new carpeting, new paint, upgrade.
And
So-
sorry, yeah, go back.
Go ahead, keep going.
You do.
Did we do, is the health careers no longer there then?
No, it's in there, it's in the lower.
It's in the lower half, okay, but it's moved, yes, it's not there, that's what I'm saying.
And I just have one other question. I realize that it's not like we don't have doors, like, for example, to the different sections of McBride or whatever. But those doors on both sides that lead out into what's currently the commons, do they really have to be there? It's not like it's a library anymore, or we didn't want the noise to go back.
I think they're fire doors.
Is that why? Why don't we have them at the places then? I mean, what would make it be, that's the only part that needs to be protected?
Well, I think we have them on. We have them on the lower part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
double down
I can
there,
ask.
I'm
Yeah,
sure that's
I mean,
fair.
we don't have it in A currently. I mean, I know a lot of our other ones in there for that. I have to practically walk right anywhere once you get going. It just makes it feel like it's always cut off. I can remember feeling like I didn't even know if I should go touch one of those doors if I had to have permission to enter. And they just really closed off that part.
I will ask, my guess is it's fire.
Yeah,
If you
I'm
think
sure.
about McBride, they've got the doors too going back.
Yeah. But they just leave them open all the time. And these guys never leave them open. That's the difference. I mean, I realize you could shut them quick or maybe make them that they shut on their own if there's a fire going on. But I just felt like they just blocked off that so far. But a lot of times, most people don't even know what you have over there. You have no clue, which might be a good thing. Okay, well, it's bad. Yeah.
We didn't always have plumbing up in that section of the school, correct?
This section.
The bathrooms right there. We didn't always, I don't think we had any plumbing up there at all.
We're gonna need to add some plumbing.
That was an atrium right there.
No, the atriums are here and here.
Okay.
There is some plumbing for back in the old library. This is like the library workroom.
Thank you.
So
Okay,
there's some.
so we're not spending a ton of money on the plumbing up there.
Well, looks
We're
like this
spending
could
money,
actually
but
go
we're
pretty
probably not.
quickly then. Once the A building is
Yeah.
done, this could move along. And you can also do this in segments.
Yeah.
So you could do this half and then do the lower half.
I think this is included in part of A.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, because they're already not, they're out of there, right? Aren't they? There's nobody in that portion.
We're having, no, I take that back, because I think we're gonna have access to this until the cafeteria is ready,
Yeah.
and then we'll start working on this. So A will be completed, and then we'll.
So then maybe just those
That's a
things
good
are
question for tomorrow.
empty.
All right, here's, the bathrooms stay where they're at. This is the new health center right here.
Oh.
Then we've got our library, media center, storage area, archives. The child development centers here. We did add a bathroom down here. Classrooms, freshened up. Our,
Cookie.
yeah, thank you, Bill.
Chef's
Culinary
school.
arts is here, and then we have some special education classes down here, and then regular gender classes.
I like it.
This is the connection, freshening up in building C. Hopeful that we'll have money. I would really want to put classrooms. We can put 5 classrooms, we can do 3 and 2. If there's a way to do that, we're gonna try. So, it depends on how we end up. Each classroom is anywhere between $400,000 and $500,000. So you can do the math really quickly for 5 classrooms. And then this is building D, and again, freshening up the bathrooms. There's some paint, not as much as we'd like to do. These are actually really great facilities. There's, I think, Wi-Fi connections are upgraded, that type of stuff. We want to do more here as well. The same thing in the lower half of the building. So here's the add alternates, and you can see right here, auto shop addition, classroom with shop storage, locker room update, the batting cage building, turf fields, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Covered area in the courtyard, seismic upgrades. I believe there's another couple items potentially on here that aren't add alternates, but we've moved them to what's called feature programs. And that really is just depending on where we land as we get near the end of the program. Hope that we have a good bid day and things come in like we anticipate.
What's the MEP option?
MEP options is
Mechanical,
let me see.
and that list is from January 2022.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it does have a whole week up there.
So on the civil option, did we get rid of having to run a road all the way along the back to the high school?
Yes.
Fire department probably said, the sprinklers actually need some.
Yep. Let us put a hammer in the backside. So I also wanted to share, I'm not sure how much we talked about this. There's kind of a plan for design, and I'm not the type of person for interior design, but that's why we have architects. And the design is based on what our community is like. So the building A will have blues, which represent the river. Building B, more woods, some greens, which is a forest. And then building C and D is kind of the result. Now, when I shared this with the high school teachers, they said, so we're gonna have black walls painted. No, they're just accents, and gray tones to represent.
Where was this decided? Like who was there?
Well, in a welding shop, there's nothing wrong with those colors.
Did the community vote that, or you said what our community wanted?
No, I said it represents our these 3 spaces. Our community has the river next to it. It's the design concept.
And I would argue that green and yellow are going to be dated so fast. That's 50s in a handbasket.
Hey, you see the green and yellow now.
I would say a much deeper green. I mean, we got a lot of.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just think we
super
need to put
surprised
some
on
white
those
over
4
black
colors.
and strip the yellow.
There we go.
Wait a minute.
Maybe we could find a nice way to just tie them all together.
Yeah.
Well, I have done that, and when you take all the colors together, purple, green, blue, everything, and because no, it comes out olive drab. And I mean, you can put bright red, everything in there, pink, purple, but no matter what you do, when you take all the colors and put them in a 50-gallon drum and stir them up, you get olive drab. And been there, done that, and the one color that the person said they didn't want, I got all this free paint, and I said, well, I'm gonna mix all these together, we'll see what we get. It's just, as long as it's not olive drab, I was in the army, I didn't want to see olive drab again. And you know what? It was olive drab. Poor Jack Blair is probably still seeing it.
So this kind of tells you why the color palettes were.
Yeah, they had.
So there's no orange in the middle.
No, there's no orange. Please,
Like
no
last time
orange.
we did this.
That was the worst year ever.
And they like presented to us last time for the middle school
Orange.
and had some sort of like reason. I'm
Don't be
totally
glad
just
to do
wondering
that orange. Every teacher. will be
where
glad
that
to
came
do
from.
orange.
It came from their design team, and it ran through our district leadership team. Worked together with Cornerstone.
And that's it.
Yeah, you see that picture of the orange flowers?
And how many of your leadership teams actually reside in our 97051?
these colors look, when you look at their renderings that they do of the building, these colors look just great. They just look really nice.
I think you want one detail. Are you telling me you're not gonna have any wood features in building A?
There will be some good features.
Maybe this platform layout.
This is an example.
Okay, it might be really weird.
I
but
will bring them in. We will bring them in and allow you to
And
have.
what color is your river house?
I'm very
What
visual.
color is your river
An
house?
awful color blue. It's gonna be it.
It's what color?
Is
Blue.
it the color of the stuff right
I,
And it's
We're
that
gonna make it
yellow
yellow and
mustard
green.
and that green is represented in that house, but.
all right, so let's look and see.
All right.
So this is, you can kind of see how this is built. Walking in right here, this is the vestibule, the offices are right off in here. You can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. See, there's some blues and there is some woods up here. Walking along the hallway, you can see other ideas with the accent, the paint, and the laminate. Here, we're hoping to have some pictures of tradition, of community, so it builds a sense of this is St. Helens. And, you know, I said traditions, but a lot of
Heritage.
heritage, thank you. And to show that there's a strong tradition in this community. There's the media center and the green that. Like,
Looks like legacy.
Sure. I spent enough time there, I'll feel it home.
there's, these are just conceptual drawings.
In our design, in our bid for contractors, do we have anything that is gonna allow us to have some of our younger apprentices like actually do anything? Can we put anything in there?
Like students.
Just in the, mostly in the contractors that we're hiring, if we can ensure that they're favorable for the learning environment, maybe we can do something with them.
Maybe.
Insurance.
And that's our
Insurance.
hesitations, the insurance piece. But there's possibly, so here's an example.
Because if we're working with the unions already that have the apprentices, I think that, I mean, they're learning also.
So right here, this I believe is from Park Rose, and that is their old gymnasium floor. So we may have something like that. We actually have something like that right now from the middle school. This could be something where we have our Cte program use their laser cutters and cut out design, and then it could be installed. So there's things
We could, I mean, I was a live edge river conference table. With a river down the middle, you know, those kinds of, we're getting more proficient at that type of work. So there's things that we could do that could be built in the shop and.
All
moved
your
into the
accent
building.
pieces.
Yeah.
With all the kids.
Those are things we could do. And I'll check and see, you know, where we can have potential students come in and get experience, or at least see what's going on. I think most of you have seen this picture. I think there's a close-up there, courtyard. I want to come back to this in a moment. Here are the two of the baseball field concepts. And for years, softball's been promised that they're going to get a field. And I know when I presented the high school, softball again was anxious. Are we going to get a field? Yes, we will have 2 softball fields and 2 baseball fields. This depends on what they're made of, the surfaces. And to that end, remember we have this property here. The city has first right of refusal. They're beginning to develop their plans. Jessica and I got work with Jessica, she's reached out, and we're going to get an appraisal of this property and begin having conversations.
It's gone up.
Yeah, and I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to do what we wanted to here, as well as some potentially additional work here at the school. So have you seen the flyby, the exterior flyby yet?
The new one?
the newest one.
It's real short.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question on your back? Go back just one.
Chrissy,
Where the football, I mean, where the baseball.
I
field
I
is.
ran out of my slides. Can you start the slideshow again?
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Just where you're showing the field. 20 pictures, right? Now. Maybe 30.
Get my-
Past Kelly's color. Hey, these will come.
This is how I watch television anyway. I'm just. this
Yeah,
feels
look,
very-
look, look.
Melody, here,
No, keep going to your baseball.
Click off.
here.
Right there, okay. Well, go one more pass. if you have it. Okay, down where there is currently a softball field, what is there? That area right there.
That's a softball. field.
So
It's
there'll
got a
be-
backstop showing there.
So I know, but in the future will be two, so it'll be three of them?
Softball field, baseball field, baseball field.
Oh, see, that
This
one
is a
down in the,
Soccer field.
in the big one up there? In the
Soccer
bottom
field.
right corner look like, more like the size of a softball field on your other, if you
Here?
go back the other page.
For one page,
Yeah, it just looked like the size of a softball field, that's what I thought you were having.
Yeah, no, this is
Where's the concession stand? That's what I need to know.
softball field, baseball. Concession stand, I'm not sure. Right, well, it's right here.
I would say any place that you're not gonna get hit by a ball.
Well, that's batting cage.
I would say, oh, okay, that's back there.
Yeah.
I would say the outbuilding here would have concessions.
Yeah, because almost every place I'm looking at, you're gonna get hit by a ball.
where you access from the top and the city property will allow for something on that side.
Right.
So with us connecting C to D, or C to B,
Mhm.
you don't have that any gate that you could open up for events anymore. There's definitely not enough parking by the church. So, which isn't gonna be a church, we're rec center, sorry. How are we gonna park people and get them back? Just along the one little edge of D?
Yeah, around the backside of it.
Can we just figure out how to get all those people to move that live on that one little section?
No.
That's a kind of expensive.
Yeah,
area.
there's like,
Only because they want it to be, not because it's there.
To the left of it.
Yeah.
So just
might be able to
something you
find
said, I just want to make, get some clarity here. So if we sold that other property and we have those 5 classrooms, are those prioritized over the fields?
No. They're prioritized with the fields.
But if we had a subset of numbers that said you get one or the other, where's the priority?
The priority would shift, and rather than turfing more, we'd have turf here, turf here with lights. And then we do what we could to add.
Because I would have the priority being the classrooms. We need capacity and we need, that serves all the students. That's just my preference, and I'm just putting that out there. But if it had to come to a balance of turf or classrooms, I would vote classrooms.
I did have it in my mind that that was within our contingency fund, that list was our contingency fund or whatever we realized with extra funds, we'll start going down that list with it being the classrooms first and then this being completely separate.
That's,
Just the sale of the lands would be.
Part of
another
the
round.
interest of the city and part of your interest was, though, however, if we're taking parkland, was making a community space here in terms of parkland. And so if the city's spending top dollar to buy our piece of property that is essentially not of value to us, and then their interest is in creating this space too. So that's part of the conversation that originally came on,
right.
was Ross Road for this contingency for the other stuff.
So to Kelly's comment, yes, we're hopeful that remaining contingencies, savings will take care of everything that's on that plan. My comment about will be, hopefully we'll have enough to take care of turf fields and have some more. That's if we're not able to get everything from that. So priority has been classrooms, but we also have a contingent of folks that supported the bond because we talked about this as well. we will be doing upgrades regardless whether they end up turf or not. So, but certainly we'll have a conversation with it.
And when you get to that part, which is down the road, just like we did with the middle school, I would certainly like to know the difference between putting in turf right up front than to put in dirt and then they have to come back.
The
Yes,
cost,
it is. I know.
the cost for a dirt field is surprising as well. Could you click on that? It should take you to a link and show the flag for
How much the softball fields used in the middle school, how much the local.
So this is just the exterior fly through. I believe it's linked on the website. They're working on the interior.
So we'll provide the tennis courts, will there be, is that where, like, deliveries could be made to the cafeteria then,
Yes.
through there? Okay. Is that also big enough to be able to be a fire lane to get back there?
Yes.
Okay.
It just doesn't go all the way around. the building,
Yeah.
Right.
If you can at least get back there and you can get around the front all the way to D, then you got access to most of it.
You can see the fence there in the courtyard, so we can open that up and not have concerns as well.
Courtyard is flattened out a little from the amphitheater idea, or you just see what it happens when it's green.
Yeah, and that's a little bit.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm missing a few.
So that's my presentation. I will pull together to try to answer some of those questions like the color palette for Kelly. You know,
I do
the
have to go
other,
with her in the 50s though.
the other pieces as we go forward. We're,
This color with
It's gonna be
those.
like,
Mhm.
you had nothing to do with it. That's gonna be.
Yeah, if you made them into creative, I guess we could say more, it looks like the forest and
We
you would
could see
never
the
notice
color in
that.
here
But You're
already.
just painting the color only, and yeah.
it's conceptual. Conceptual. Right, that is my full report.
All right. Now we're on to 6.0, visitors to address the board.
No visitor.
Nothing.
I think they left.
Right here, snoring.
Brings us to 7.0 action items. 7.1 adopt revised 2022-2023 community calendar.
I'm your case, but 7.1, adopt revised 2023 community calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
I'm running away, but okay, that's
That brings us to 8.0 upcoming meeting input, April 27th, regular board meeting at 6:30. And we're at Columbia City mini boat project and early learning project program update.
I move to adjourn.
All right.
Yeah, I almost sent it to you way too late last night.